freshwater and marine education programs to schools and communities across the Greater Wellington region. They connect people to nature, building an understanding through science and extrapolating and fostering guardianship for the environment. So the first few slides are an extract out of the Ministry of Education school resource that they produce for schools. It's called Taking Action. They wrote this resource based on the experiences of a bunch of students at Wilford School. So I'm going to pretty much kind of read the story because it's a good setup. So in 2016, students from Wilford School in Petone were snorkeling at Lowry Bay. It's a local bay near where they live. They were part of the Mountains to Sea Marine Reserves program, and they were having a great time there, looking at all the different fish and starfish. They saw a stingray, and they were all pretty excited about that. But they weren't very happy about the 253 pieces of litter they found. And so they realised that this litter was actually coming from their local township. Wilford School's just around the corner from the centre of Petone. And they realised that Stormwater was taking this litter in the township through the stormwater drains and down to their beach. So Harvey, Ethan and Gemma said, we've had enough of this, we're going to do something. So what they did is they went and found some technology, some traps, and they stuck them in their local drains. And they investigated a lot of different solutions actually, and they chose the traps because they were pretty easy to install and really easy to maintain. They wanted to know what was going down the drain. These traps were set outside a restaurant and cafes, and another one was set in a residential area. Once a week, three of them and their teachers went, their teacher, Mrs. Webb, drove down to the sites and emptied the traps and went back to school with what they caught. There's quite a few safety things they had to do. They had disposable gloves, we gave them some cones and some vests, and we actually put the traps in for them. And they'd take it back out and they'd sort through it. They'd go through separate the hard and soft plastics, the cigarette butts, and then they started thinking about how long these things would last. They didn't count any of that organic material, such as leaves and such, because they didn't think that would harm the environment. And then they collated all this information and built some spreadsheets and repeated this process over 12 weeks. At the end of the investigation, they held an information evening with the community, with the parents and other teachers and other classes in the school. Some people from City Council and Wellington Water came along, and everyone was quite shocked by how much stuff they were catching in the drains, in the traps. Over the 12 weeks, they caught 2,680 pieces of litter in just 2 catch pits. And that meant 2,680 pieces of litter would have normally gone down to their local beach. Half the pieces of litter were actually cigarette butts. The other half, the rest of the litter included aluminium cans, polystyrene, wood, broken glass, straws, soft drink bottles, parking tickets, library receipts, food wrappers, cardboard and fabric. The drains outside the cafes and the restaurants collected much more than the drains around the houses in the residential area. The students used this information and did a few bit of basic statistics and extrapolation. And they worked out that from the 93 drains in Petone, the township, they could be up to 500,000 pieces of litter could be going through those drains into their local beach where they were snorkeling. And so they didn't think that was very option. It's not the touch screens. I didn't think that was a very good idea. Yep. So they took this information and they went out and they started exploring what other ways and different things they could do. They kept on telling other community members, and it extrapolated out through the community. And everyone in the whole of Petone area realised that something had to really be done about stormwater. And they actually then inspired the ministry to create this booklet. They also, other schools got on to Mountains to Sea saying, we want to do this too. We want to know what's coming, what contribution we're making to our litter and plastic problem in our local area. So this program is an excellent example of environmental education. The process of environmental education allows individuals to explore environmental issues themselves. It engages them to solve the problems, to act and improve on the environment. And as a result, the individuals really grow a much deeper understanding about the issues, and they also develop skills to make informed and responsible decisions. Environmental education doesn't advocate one particular view. It really encourages, and rather encouraging individuals to grow their own and weigh up the different issues and decide, what is the best way to help this and manage this. So by the Mountains to Sea first taking them to the marine reserve and enjoying the environment, they get a real connection with what it's all about, the harbour and fish and how great that is. And then by pointing it out and identifying the stresses, and then going back up and then getting the kids to think about how do we solve this, it's really sinking really, really deep into them. So their program, this is the first group that did the program. It's a real journey for them, as I'm kind of making out. The program that Mountains to Sea has developed really integrates into the school syllabus as well. So the teachers the Mountains to Sea come and take the students away on a few trips. First they do a classroom session talking about snorkeling and stuff and marine and telling them what they go see. Then they do a pool session where they're learning how to snorkel properly. And then they do a couple of snorkeling trips where they not only go snorkeling in a marine reserve, they also do a non-marine reserve as well and really note the difference. And they also actually walk back up into the catchment, and there's a few kind of action projects where they're identifying the stresses, where this litter might be coming from, or other issues around other water cycle aspects as they walk through the catchment. They call it the Stormwater walk. And then they go away knowing a lot more about the issues. So as I said, so there's kind of these two aspects. The first group goes snorkeling, and the other group would go walk around, either a stormwater walk through the catchment, looking at how much impervious area. They look at downpipes. They look at the drains. They look at outfalls. Where are they all going? And then just kind of teaching us the stuff that we learn as stormwater professionals all the time. They also go to the rocky shore. And it's a bit of a transect from the ocean through to the shore and the beach cleanup. They're seeing the stuff on the beach and then up into the catchment again. And then they do these action projects when they go back to the class. And there's a whole bunch of action projects there, and the children choose their own action projects. They can come up with other ones as well, but the teachers and Mountains to Sea kind of guide them. They're mural painting and public presentations. And one of them was monitor a litter trap. So it has a lot of crossovers with the New Zealand curriculum, and as an engineer it was quite interesting reading the New Zealand curriculum. And one of these is science, and science is obviously the main one. So nature, participating and contributing with nature. Science and planet Earth and beyond, and being involved in the planet Earth. Technology and how technology can overcome environmental outcomes. And obviously maths and statistics. So obviously these are some of the key science ideas. We can engage scientifically. They're engaging scientifically with what they're seeing. They look for a range of scientific information relating to the issue. They check the information as trustworthy. They do their research. They get on the internet, etc. They consider the reliability and the validity of the evidence. They look at my litter trap and they say, can it work? They question it. What happens if there's a big storm and stuff like that? And then they monitor the effects of the actions they take. They science, planet Earth and beyond. This is where they get out and they see how habitats change. How they degrade. And they see the challenges that are associated, that recovery might be difficult. And they realise that, you know, people can intervene and help out with the recovery. They explore technology. You know, they try to work out which technologies would be fit for purpose for the situation, or what could they use to find out more. You know, there's no point putting out a big GPT to try to find out what's going, because they wouldn't get it with the lids. And they really realise that environmental issues can be influenced by technology, and different things can be achieved by using technology. And obviously, the last one, they can analyse the data and work out things, you know. So these are all good primary school, or even later secondary school skills that they tried to talk. So that was kind of like the project. And so it's been really spread out now over the last 2 years. It's been extended to 8 schools. We've done 13 drains across the Wellington region, or Greater Wellington region. Generally, they're monitored between 1 to 14 weeks. Now, there's quite a bit of safety involved. You know, you don't really want to send your 7-year-old down into the drain and playing around with it. So the teachers and Mountains to Sea are really quite involved. And you know, we've got a few techniques, like you scatter the contents of the bag so you can see any sharps or anything like that. And punch-proof gloves are used as they sort through it and stuff. So I've been dealing with Sarah for the last 2 years, and they're all putting the information into a centralised Google Docs spreadsheet database. So we've got all this data now, suddenly from all over Wellington, about how much plastic is actually kind of going, and how much gross pollutants are going down the drains. Because there's not been a lot of work in actually quantifying this. Generally, you know, gross pollutants were thought of not a problem a few years ago. They were aesthetically a problem, but not an environmental problem. But now we know a lot more. So through the 11 sites, on average, we got 1,600 pieces of litter per year per drain. And that's quite a lot. It varied from pit to pit, land use to land use. The lowest accumulation was 4 pieces of litter in a week. The highest was 71 pieces in a week. Was actually another one down, it's a bit higher, but I didn't count. The classes witnessed 0 accumulation when there was no rain, so there was a bit of so if it doesn't rain, nothing goes down the drain. So it was a bit of a thing to realise. But you know, it's still connecting the stormwater problem. We did a bit of analysis on different loading rates from different sources, and we split, because there were so many cigarette butts, we kind of made that an own category, because it's actually plastic as well. The filters are made out of a sort of plastic. And then we accumulated it, and you can see the grey line is litter loading pieces per drain per year, and you can see obviously the commercial has a much higher loading rate, up over the 2000s. Residential was the lowest because there's less activity, less people walking around. There's still a lot of cigarette butts in residential areas, and that we only got plastic in the car park, which I was quite surprised because I think people might have thrown their cigarette butt. But you know, it's a small size project really, you know. Overall, 43% of the litter was cigarette butts. So I think we should do something about that. We also looked at the difference between private and public contribution. You know, there's drains on private sites as well as on public sites, and it was pretty evenly split. You know, like a private site would be a supermarket or inside the school. A public site's typically the roads. So in Wellington, roughly half the land is private and half the land is public. So I did a few numbers, you know, of the 13 drains monitored. You know, I said the average was 1,600, but if we take a medium number as a conservative number, 974 pieces were caught. And there's actually 12,500 catch pits owned by Wellington City. So that could be 25,000 catch pits then in the Wellington area, Wellington City area. And if you put that all together, well, it's up now to 24 million pieces of litter coming out of Wellington Township, Wellington City. So, you know, well, that's a lot. And, you know, as I said, not many people have been thinking gross gross pollutants is a problem. Back in 1995, there was a study in Island Care Marine Trust in Auckland where they estimated 28 million pieces of litter a day going out Auckland stormwater drains. So that was 10.2 million pieces a year. So it looks like things are growing from that. And as I mentioned, you know, people didn't think it was bad back in the 90s. Even the first edition of TP10 said, oh, it's not a problem, don't worry about it. So the World Economic Forum, as this is very topical at the moment, have been doing a lot of research in it. And they reckon that by 2025 there'll be a ton of plastic for every 3 tons of fish. And the problem is growing and growing and growing. It's because there's so much more plastic being created and used and lost in our societies. And by 2050, they reckon there'll be more plastic than fish. And this equates to around about 5.25 million pieces of plastic in the ocean. So it's a big problem. So I took those numbers from Wellington and started extrapolating it out around New Zealand, basically trying to work on a loading rate of plastic per square kilometre of urban area. And the numbers are getting stupid across New Zealand. And I've estimated that maybe there's 420 million pieces of litter per year going down New Zealand stormwater drains. That's just from their study. It's small. I wouldn't put money on that, but I actually think it could be worse than this. Because we did an industrial site where a plastic manufacturer that has the little plastic noodles, we put a liner on the litter trap to catch 1 millimetre particles, and we monitored that for a whole year with the Plastics Association, and we got 220,000 noodles in one drain. So that number might be small. It might be bigger than that. So it's really, getting back to the education side, really see children as a real vehicle for change. You know, adults beat children in many cognitive tasks, but the research is showing that children's kind of limited knowledge is actually sometimes their strength. Researchers have found that adults are very good at remembering information when they're told to focus on it and ignoring the rest. But by contrast, children just tend to pay attention to all the information and really notice what's really striking. They're not their view of the world is not clouded. So that if we can engage with them and teach them about the issues, it'll spread and propagate, and when they grow up, hopefully there's a different attitude to what we're doing. And less resistance, less reasons, oh, we can't do this because of that. Why don't we just do something? So the next couple of slides are just, the kids, a lot of the schools did presentations on it, and so these are some of the learning. This is what they're saying, or why are we doing this? We found out a lot of rubbish was in our school. It came from all of us, It gave us an idea about what's going on in our local beach and started thinking about what we could do. Then these are the children saying this, And we started planning different activities. Let's have a plastic-free lunchbox day. What a good idea. Let's get that message out. Another school, what the data shows, the rubbish goes down the drain. The different types of rubbish go down. It happens after heavy rain, And we need to educate people. So the children are getting it pretty quickly. So just to conclude, children experiencing plastic and litter in their local marine environment can drive change. Learning about the sources of these pollutants and how they make their way to the ocean influences communities. Collectively, Mounts to Sea and the 8 participating schools have really highlighted the extent of the problem in New Zealand, which no one actually has done to this point in time. The study shows how much plastic is going down our drains. And the children in the program realise something needs to be done, and that's the thing. And it's really hope that what their experience, they can tell their parents that something needs to be done and we'll get change. So that's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
Any questions?
I'm Linda from ACH. Has there been any uptake from the Ministry of Education to make it part of the national curriculum set?
Well, I think the ministry's less hands-on. They produce this resource, and that resource links it to the curriculum and how you can use it within, you know, I think the ministry kind of leaves a lot up to the teachers to drive their own way of addressing the curriculum. So it becomes another resource in the toolbox of things, essentially.
And is that resource available online?
Yeah, I think it's listed in the references. You can go to there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I wrote a full paper for this, and it's in the proceedings. It's not just a shortened abstract.
More questions?
Oh, yeah, hi. Hi, from a little bit of the reading that I've done, seems like a very Scandinavian approach. Some of them, they take a project like that, whatever it may be, and then they put it across their entire curriculum for the whole year. So I'd be curious whether some of these schools are going to continue on with that. They could then bring, say, iwi and have their say, you know, the cultural and spiritual values that Troy was talking about in another thing. They got that sense of that data visualization that they could do there. God forbid we have children dressed up as cigarette butts walking down the street as a theatrical production. Is there any talk of these schools or like minor things getting together and expanding that as you know, to make it a kind of a holistic year-long
I'm actually
scenario?
talking a bit with NIWA at the moment. They want to do another monitoring project in Wellington. And I've got a bit of a vision that we could set up a database for community monitoring and create more resources. You can take this and run with it, you know. You can do lots of different things with it, you know. So this is just the start, really. It's good to work with educators. They understand how to communicate to children better than an engineer does. You know, it's good to, you know, bounce these different disciplines and different ideas and come up with new ways to go. We've thought about taking all the cigarette butts, scooping the water out of the ocean and sticking it on the windowsill for a month and let them see what happens, you know. They'll get an idea soon.
Time for some more questions?
Trent here from Foresight. Mike, that was a really great presentation. I just wonder, you know, somehow it's got lost in translation that we're not supposed to that people are littering, and education has been completely lost on that. Did you get a perception from the children that they understood that it was wrong? Do we need to drive that message again?
Yeah, well, we were on a
We should've-
stormwater
yeah.
walk with the kids, and they were walking off and picking up stuff, taking it back, putting it in the bin. That was, you know, it just sinks in real quick, and you don't actually have to hammer it home. You know, you don't need to tell them, they kind of get it quite quickly, that we're all part of the problem and we're all part of the solution, you know, so it's, yeah, it was really working right in front of me. You know,
Maybe it's older kids and adults who are doing the littering.
yeah, and I think as we get older, we get busier. You know, a lot of the litter is not intentional. It's kind of just a byproduct of activity. You know, if something falls out of the back of the car or blows away, you run after it and grab it and stuff. I know the cigarette butts is just negligence. Yeah, you know, and we need to really focus some serious education on that, because there's just billions of cigarette butts. You know. So, but yeah, no, the children pick it up and they change. I don't know what happens as they grow older. You know, we all change, don't we?
Time for a couple more questions. Mike, fantastic presentation. I'd just be interested in your opinion about where you think it might be sit to coordinate some of the outputs from this going forward, because you've taken a lot on your plate, for example, to do that. Is there a home that you see as a coordination of some
Yeah, and
of
then they were again, they've got this community monitoring website that they want to do, you know, and maybe it's integrating with the ministry. Enviro schools is a good vehicle. I've got some meetings with them in the next few weeks. And you know, it's how do we, you know, it's a good concept, how do we expand it really, you know?
Sorry, off the record comment. So considering cigarette butts are causing so much problem, you know, environmentally, is it better to be alcoholic than a smoker?
Well, better than we become a smoker. Well, I don't know, yeah, a lot of smashed bottles too.
One last question.
Brilliant presentation, Mike. It's Claire Feeney, Environmental Communications Limited. Some of the other people that you could partner with here are the Waste Management Institute. They're really big on the circular economy,
Yep.
and there's been some huge research on the new plastics economy that
Yep.
they're pursuing very actively. And I think possibly also Keep New Zealand Beautiful could be another thing, Trent, to ease your mind about the littering problem.
Yeah, thanks, yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant work. Well done.
Cheers.
Ian's got one more burning question.
Just got time for it.
Hey Mike, a quick one really. So we've seen the benefits of concerted effort around wet wipes in sewage.
Right, yeah.
Is there this has the potential to be a concerted effort around the globe, around cigarettes?
Well, yeah, you know, especially in countries where they have a higher percentage of smokers, you know, okay, I don't, somebody wants to kill himself, that's fine by me, but don't kill the fish, right?
And there's very much that messaging of there's an impact on the wet wipes, for example, on the system and the performance and the flooding and the crap in your lawn and the crap in your house. Here is your actions causing X, Y, Z.
Yep.
And that's been a very consistent message, and people are starting to realise that it's not acceptable anymore.
Yeah, yeah, totally, yeah. But, you know, well, it's a big issue right here. There's somebody trying to ban cigarette smoking in Queenstown because they pick up thousands of butts on the beach down there in the main town. You know, so maybe should even try sticking some signs up. Don't throw your butts. You know, there could be something like that. Cool, thank you.
Thank you.